Hi, I'm Tatiana Quiroz Saba, and I am currently living at Juniper Poplar in the Poplar Tower. I definitely love living on campus, that it's so close to everything. It's so easy to get involved with things, to get involved in clubs and events around campus. The community around my pod, getting to know my neighbors and the pod community, have that support. My advice for scholarship applicants is to get involved on campus and really take advantage of all the events, all the clubs and things that you can get involved in to kind of create that community sense early on and carry it through the rest of your years. I would just like to thank everyone who donated, how much of a difference it makes to, I know, me and many other students who received the scholarship, to be able to live on campus and have that experience, have that community building, have that stress taken away of how they're going to pay for living on campus, how they're going to pay for tuition, and just to focus on their studies and focus on their experience and growth here at USF.
Coming to you from the beautiful University of South Florida campus in Tampa, it's USF Housing Live!
Welcome to USF Housing Live. I'm your host, Julia O'Hara, with Housing and Residential Education at the beautiful University of South Florida in Tampa. Thank you for joining us this evening as we talk about the family and orientation experience at USF. Be sure to drop your questions in the comments wherever you're watching, and we'll respond to as many as we can throughout the show. But before we dive into tonight's episodes, we have an update regarding the on-campus availability for the fall 2022 term. The USF Tampa campus is experiencing very high demand for on-campus housing and is nearing capacity for the fall 2022 term. In response to this situation, we have closed the fall-spring housing application for the USF Tampa campus and have initiated a standby list process to assign any remaining beds to students who have completed the first 4 steps to living on campus as the rooms become available. If the student's top priority is to secure a space on campus, regardless of room type or location, they should consider enrolling on the standby list. To enroll in the standby list, applicants who are ready to select a room should request in the standby list request form in the housing portal. Only residents who have a housing application for the fall-spring term on file are able to enroll in the standby list. To learn more about the standby list process, please visit our website at usf.edu/housing. Now let's get to our first guest this evening, the Assistant Dean of Students and the Director for New Student Connections and Parent and Family Engagement, Keri Riegler. Welcome, Keri. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Julia. Thank you so much for having me on tonight. It's so great to be a part of this process and to connect with our families.
Absolutely. Well, we're excited to have you, and let's jump into some questions. But before we do, I just want to remind those watching tonight, be sure to drop your questions in the comments wherever you're watching, and we'll respond to as many as we can throughout the show. So, Keri, can you tell us about parent and family engagement?
Yeah, so the Parent and Family Engagement Unit at the University of South Florida on the Tampa campus is a space for families to find their connection and their support while their student is when their student is here at the University of South Florida during their 4 or 5 years, however long it might take them. So we're here to provide some support, provide resources, information, and to really help families feel confident in their student's decision and to help them find the resources that their student needs to be successful here at USF, and then to be a coach and a support resource for those families as well.
Great, thank you. And how can families become part of the campus community at USF, whether they live in the Tampa area or if they're across the country or even the world? What are the opportunities for them to be part of this community?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is we really want our families to be informed, because we know that when they're informed, their students are informed, and we really love that their referral agents for us and kind of share the information that students need to know in order to be successful. So we would encourage all family members to take advantage of viewing our website. So that's usf.edu/families. We've got great information on there for families so that they can feel informed. We've got important dates so they understand what the university deadlines are and dates that they need to remind their students are. We also have a really great resource page where I would tell you that they can go and say, let's say your student needs some academic support. We can direct you and refer you directly to the office that provides that services so they don't have to try to find that information themselves. We've done already that crosswalk for them. In terms of really also getting connected with the community, we have a lot of information that we share in what we call our parent and family bulletin. So it is a portal where family members can go in and create their profile and really select the information that they want to hear from the institution. So that might be something that's their demographics, or like you referenced, they're out of state or international, and so they'd like that information sent to them. Maybe their students living on housing on campus, and they want housing information shared with them. They can personalize their experience and the information that we will share to them via their email address. So they can go in, create their profile, and start to receive that information as early as tomorrow from the university. So we would hope that they would do that to stay informed and to kind of inform their student on various ways to get connected on campus and to feel supported.
Keri, I love that portal. It's such a neat thing that you all do. And say again how parents can take advantage of that opportunity, how they can sign up?
Yeah, absolutely. So if they go to our website, usf.edu/families, they'll find at the very bottom, there's a little icon that they can click on. They click on that and it'll take them right into the portal where they can add in their information. It's typically just your first name, last name, and email. And then it will walk you through sort of this onboarding process pretty quick, takes less than 5 minutes to select your preferences of what you want for that information. And we encourage family members to do that. And then they get to pick how frequently we communicate with them. Is that weekly? Is that biweekly? Is that once a month? Is it maybe never? So they get to make that choice and they get the information when they want it, which we have found to be really exciting for them.
Absolutely. Thank you. And let's talk about events. What events do you have coming up, or any ideas for new events for family members?
Yeah, absolutely. So we always want to welcome our family members when their students arrive on campus. And so we would encourage them to stop by the Marshall Center. We'll have tables both in the summer experience and also the fall experience during what we call Week of Welcome, or WOW. And they'll be in the Marshall Center on that grand opening day, the Friday, June 24th, as well as Thursday and Friday, August 18th and 19th. It's a great way for family members to connect with university staff or students that are here and employed by the institution to get their questions answered and really feel settled before they depart and leave their student here at the University of South Florida. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we want you to save the date. Our family weekend dates for 2022 have been released. So family weekend will be October 14th through the 16th. There's some information on our website, but more information will be available later this summer. And we'll be playing the University of Tulane for our football. So that's exciting. And then also we always encourage family members to come on campus, take a part of athletic events, whatever sport they may choose, and enjoy softball, baseball, basketball, football, and kind of engage campus how they choose to with their student.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always lots to do. And, you know, this is a big transition for a new student going to away from home, maybe for the first time for a prolonged period of time. So you work with parents and families, you know, every day in that capacity. So what advice do you have for parents going through that transition process?
Yeah, the advice I will probably give families is to just recognize that this is a hard process, right? Transition's hard, change is hard, and to give yourself grace, right? So many family members have a vision of what this will look like. And I think often we find that it doesn't always play out that way for whatever reasons. And most of the time outside of your control as a family member for it not to sort of take place in the way that you maybe have envisioned it would take place. And it's often harder on our families than it is on our students, right? I often hear family members talking to me that, you know, my student called me, they were upset, something was happening. And what they don't realize is the next moment their student found a friend in the residence hall, right, or a commuter in a study group, and then made their way to the dining hall and is laughing and having a great time, made their way to an event, and the poor family member is back at the house crushed because their student had just called and was having a hard time. So students rebound really quickly here, right? And oftentimes our family members get the hardest part of the conversations and the place where their students need that love and that support and don't always get those celebratory moments of when their student is doing really really great. And so I just want to remind families of that, and know that they will call you when they're upset, when they need their love, your love and your support, and less likely to call you, unfortunately, when there are those great moments and times to celebrate. And that's okay, and to be there for that, but just to have that in the back of your mind. Last piece of advice I'd give with the transition process is to trust your gut. Our family members know their students the best, right? You have raised these students, you know who they are, you know when things feel off with them. And so we always encourage our family members, when something doesn't feel right, to call and let the institution know. Let us get you connected to those resources so we can support your student, and don't delay. Really trust your gut in those spaces.
Thanks, Keri. That is a great point. I never thought of it like that, what you were saying earlier about the calls that may be negative, but not usually about the positive things. So that's good to keep in mind. So talking about families preparing their students. So how can families best prepare their students for life as a bull, away from home for the first time, whether that's this upcoming summer or starting in the fall?
Yeah, so the first advice I give you is really plan out some great memories. What are some fun things that you do with your student that you can take photos with, reminisce, or just enjoy, and to have some good time during this time of transition, and to send them away with some great memories, and for you to cherish those memories before they go. We would also encourage family members to have some good conversations with their students about what their USF experience is going to look like. So we would encourage you to ask some probing questions, right? What are their expectations of this experience? How do they envision their university life to be? How are they going to engage with their faculty members? What type of organizations are they excited about joining? Are they going to participate in any campus activities and events, and what might those be? How do they, as a student, want you to engage with them? And how do they want them? How does your student want you to communicate with them? How frequently does that happen? When do they expect you to step in? And so we have found that if students and family members really have some of those expectation conversations on the front end, and the family members just ask some good probing questions over the summer and getting their student to really start to think about what this next journey is, it allows for when those moments happen in the fall semester or spring semester to be a little bit more smooth and a little bit more planned out, or to have a plan in place, and for the family member to feel confident that they know how their student would want them to engage with them, right? If they haven't made a doctor's appointment, or if they aren't budgeting or balancing their budget, or they've never done laundry, this is a really great time to help them build those life skills when you're still around and available, right there for them to ask those questions and for you to coach them through that process. Then that call that I had to make to my mom the first weekend, where I put a red sock in with my white laundry and everything turned pink, right? And then I was crying and going, what do I do, Mom, right? And I lived in Maryland and went to school in Florida. So she was 12,000 miles away, and unable to help me. And I had that moment, right? So being able to think through what are those things that your student may need to experience before they get to USF. So when they're here at USF, it's not the first time that they're doing that, but they've already had that support from you.
Those are great points. I think we've all been there, Keri, with the laundry situation. Everybody has to learn the hard way, I think, with that.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And so before we get into some questions, I have another question for you about contacting your office, and then a little bit about the move-in experience and how you can best prepare families for that process, how families can best prepare their students. I want to address a couple of the questions that we're getting in. A lot about orientation, which we'll be talking to Marnie after we wrap up with you here in a couple of minutes. So for those of you asking questions, thank you so much. We will be talking with Marnie from the Office of Orientation soon. But for fall semester opening, a question about opening is when halls open. That is going to be August 18th is grand opening. That's a Thursday. So that's something to mark your calendars for. And then as far as access, Christopher is asking, do students have access to all residential halls and amenities available in other halls like game, TV, common areas, or rooms? And actually, as one of our security measures, students that are assigned to a building, they only have access to that building, so nobody is wandering around campus with their key card or finding a key card and getting access into the halls. It's very secure in that only residents that live in that building have access to that building. Now, that doesn't mean that if you live in Pinnacle and have a friend in Endeavor that wants to come over and hang out in the common area, you can definitely open the door for them and let them in. But in order to get access into the hall, you will need your USF ID card that acts as your swipe access into the hall. And then we're getting some more detailed questions about orientation. Like I said, we'll get to those in a few minutes. And one more, though, about room assignments. Will my daughter automatically get the same room or the opportunity for the same room the second semester? So quick comment on that. The fall-spring term is one housing agreement. So if you select your space for the fall term, that is going to be your space for the spring term as well, if you are in a fall-spring agreement. So, Keri, thanks for a little sidetrack there as I answer some of the questions that are building up. Let's talk about move-ins. We talked about grand opening is on August 18th, which August may seem close or far, depend on who you ask, but it's coming up quickly and we're in the planning process for that. And how can families support their students during move-in and the following months? I want to add on too in the preparation for that. What are some tips that you often give to incoming families and their students?
Yeah, well, and for some of our families, move-in will be June 24th, right? Or after, based on the summer arrival. So for some of them, it probably feels like it's tomorrow, even though it's a couple weeks away. And for a few more, like you said, in August, might feel that they've still got some time. So in the preparation, I think in preparation and on that day and even really the following months, while it is so hard, right, as a family member to sort of to start the letting go process, we really want to encourage you to have your students sort of be the lead of this process. Let them be the one that talks a little bit about how they want it to look like and taking the lead and really driving the experience. So let them pick out their bedding, let them pick out the bed, let them sort of make their room adjustments. And on that day, oftentimes we find that those hard moments come when the family has a sort of expectation of what that day is going to look like, and it just doesn't live into it. And so being able to ask your student what that looks like, right, and allowing them to sort of self-author that experience, I think will be really helpful. And I remind families to just be present in that moment for move-in, right? There's a lot of things that are outside their control, the university's control, and just being able to be excited that your student has made it to this really huge milestone, and to be able to celebrate that, take some good photos, put it on Facebook, and allow us as an institution and your fellow families and new cohort to be able to celebrate in what is such a great day for all of our families, I think is really important. And the stuff for the upcoming months, you know your favorites, your students' favorite food, or where they like takeout, and how can you surprise them? So my mom knew that I always loved to write notes. And so I would get a note and a card in my mail about once a month with a $20 bill so I could go buy whatever ice cream I wanted, because that's my favorite food, and stamps so that I could write home with notes, right? So that's what she knew about me, and I treasured those notes from her, right? And I would encourage you to think about how you do that as a family member for your student. What is it that they may love, and what is it that you can have ready for those moments when you do get that difficult phone call and you know they just need to hear from you, or that you could celebrate really that great milestone when they come back and tell you that they aced that exam that they had studied really hard for, and they were so proud of the work that they had put in, and then the result there. So being able to know your student and know what they want to have and how you can be able to provide that to them, I think is also really great. And just being flexible and patient with them. The freshman year is the hardest year that a student's going to go through. They learn so much about themselves, who they are, how to be independent, what they want out of life, how to build friends. And they just need grace and support and love during this time. And that's where our family members are so key, because they are such the primary support unit for our students. And we appreciate the love that they provide, the support that they provide. And just know that, and know that we appreciate you families. I know you don't always feel that way just from your students, but know that we as an institution do. And thank you for all that you've done.
Great, and that's great advice, Keri. Something else brought up here in the comments that I'd like to mention is when you're talking about preparing for moving in, we do have a move-in checklist that's on the housing website that are some great reminders for things to bring, things not to bring. So that's a great resource for parents and their students to take a look at that and maybe go get some of those items that are recommended and go through that planning process together. Another question. Go ahead.
Oh. I was just going to say, some people decide that they wait and they're going to go buy everything at Bed Bath & Beyond when they get here after they see some things. Some people have it shipped to a store and go pick it up. Some people decide that they're bringing everything in the SUV when they arrive. So it really depends on what you and your family member feel is best and what your student has said they want this experience to be. I would say to family members, every student experience is different. And so do what is best for you and your family member at this time and for your student. Sorry, Julia,
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
No, of course. A question that you may be able to help with here is an audience member, Christine, is asking about a link to the forms to give parents access to dependent students' financial info, school records, and healthcare decisions. Do you know, because I know you work with being the liaison between that for so many families, do you know a little bit about that? Because I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, I can give some information. I will say that it's complex and it really is managed by individual units, which I know is difficult for a family member. So we apologize by that, but just based on sort of the federal guidelines, we need to be able to do that. So it would be that if you're looking for financial information, there are forms on the financial aid website that your student will need to complete in order to grant you access for someone within financial aid to be able to speak with you. It is the same thing where you will need to do probably a separate form out of the registrar's office. That's really what we call the FERPA form, where then you would be able to then complete that form and you'd be able to have access to some of the information that the university has, and that someone like myself, a staff member, would be able to talk with you about what is going on with your student because your student has granted that access. I think that's the key that family members sort of need to keep in mind, is that your student needs to be able to grant you this access. It's not something that a family member can just go and complete on their own. It's the same thing with the health forms. And so that actually is done by a case-by-case incident. So in every situation that your student might be at student health, that's where those forms would need to be granted. Oftentimes what's best is in those situations, it might be that your student is on the call and your student says, I grant access for this person to have access to my information or to be on this call with me, if those forms are not in place. So there is an article that is posted in the portal that I mentioned at usf.edu/families that sort of outlines the various forms that the institution has for a student to be able to grant what we would call third-party access to their information to someone that they're interested in having that access to.
Thank you, Keri. That's very helpful. And I think that the last thing I wanted to chat with you about for those that are watching tonight and want to get in touch with your office or learn more, where would you send them and what resources would you recommend for them to connect with you all?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would always encourage them to go to the website. The website has a lot of information. You can also call us at 813-974-2896. 813-974-2896. Our office is open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And then you can always email us at family.usf.edu is our main line. And on our website, we have really what we call an intake form that allows you to sort of outline what's going on with your student and what support either you or your student may need. And our office is located in the Marshall Student Center. So when you're here for orientation, please feel free to stop by. We'll be at a table in the sessions in the morning and available to answer questions that you might have, and love chatting with our families and getting to meet them and connect with them and to learn about their story and their student's story.
Perfect. Keri, thank you so much again for taking the time to chat with us this evening.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for hosting Housing Live and family members. It's so great to have an opportunity to connect with you, and we welcome you to the University of South Florida and appreciate you being here and the partnership that you will provide with us and your student.
All right. Well, have a great night, Keri. Thank you again.
Thank you.
It's time for us to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more USF Housing Live right after this.
Welcome, my name's Nur and this is Cash Cart. Here's how it works. We give free rides to USF students all around campus. Along the way, I'll ask them exciting trivia questions, and for each correct answer, we'll give them one cart cash. And if they do well, they will win some fabulous prizes. The number of correct answers determines how many prizes they get. 1 or 2 cart cash gets them a USF bead necklace and a USF cup. 3 or 4 cart cash gets them the USF beads, cup, and a lettuce-shaped stress ball. Now, if they manage to get all 5 questions right, then they will win a tote bag with each of those prizes plus many more. But if they don't get any questions right, then that's okay. They'll still win something. Now, let's get rolling. Hi, we're here with
Chamanthy.
All right, So our first question is, where can you find the newest residence hall on campus?
The newest residence hall? I guess maybe the Village?
Yep, that's right. So you get 1 cart cash. Right there. So our second question is, in what year was USF founded?
1964. 60-something.
You were about 10 years off. It's 1956.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And what is the full name of USF's mascot?
Rocky Depot.
Yep, that's right. So you get another one. For our third question, how much does it cost to do laundry on campus?
$125 for a wash and $125 for drying.
Yes, that's right. Yep. So our last question is, who is the student center named after?
Marshall. It's a lady, I know that, but I forgot her first name. Ruth Marshall something.
No, it's Phyllis P. Marshall. Yep. But you got so many right. Thank you so much. So that's 3 prizes that you're gonna get. So a USF cup and a stress ball and some USF beads as well. Yeah, thank you. All right, so we're gonna take you to your destination next, okay? All right. Thank you so much. We're almost here. Thank you for being a part of it. You did a great job. And
A lot of fun.
yeah, I hope you like your prices.
I do. Thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you.
Alrighty, bye guys.
Bye, have a good one.
You too.
Yeah.
Welcome back. I'm Julia O'Hara, and if you're just now joining us, this is USF Housing Live, and we're here to help prepare you to live the Bulls life at USF. So ask us your questions in the comments, and we will answer you live on the show. Our second guest this evening is the director for our USF Office of Orientation and a USF Housing Live regular, Marnie Hauser. Hi, Marnie. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me tonight.
Thanks for being back with us. We're excited to talk all about orientation. We've had some questions already that have built up in the chat from last guest, so let's dive into it.
Okay.
Before we jump in, can you tell us about the Office of Orientation and your role in the department?
Sure. So I serve as the director of the Office of Orientation for the Tampa campus and partner with our colleagues at the St. Petersburg and Sarasota Manatee campuses to facilitate orientation for all new undergraduate students and their families and guests. And what that means is providing them with university information that's going to help them get started in their academic and co-curricular career here at the institution, getting them situated with anything that's related to onboarding, including access to my Bulls Path and the items within my Bulls Path, orientation programming itself, peer-to-peer connections with our orientation leaders, and just general support and guidance as it's related to being a new student here. So lots of really great things that the office accomplishes and provides.
And can you tell us a little bit about the format for this year's orientation sessions?
Sure. So our first year orientation sessions are being held in an in-person modality. They are a 2-day program, but it's a little different than what we've done previously. The first day of orientation is in person and being hosted in our Marshall Student Center here on campus. The first day is being hosted by my department as well as our partners and colleagues from across the university. It's a full day with check-in starting at 8:30 a.m. And it'll wrap up at about 4:30 p.m. Our students and any family members or guests who join them will exit out. And then on the second day, it's primarily focused on the academic experience. And so thinking about what it means to be a student in our academic colleges and programs, and reviewing their pre-registered course schedules, any academic requirements, all of that. The second day is being hosted primarily in a virtual format. And that's to offer some flexibility both on the part of our academic colleges as well as for our students and family members. We do have some opportunities for our students to attend and participate in the second day in person, primarily through our College of Engineering. They are hosting a small number of in-person sessions, and so those would be connected. We would connect the students with the College of Engineering through that. But my office, we are just essentially a gateway for that experience on the second day. We are not fully hosting that day. So we've been providing support and guidance in those spaces and getting students connected with their academic colleges and programs. So, and then our families and guests will also have a full experience as part of that too.
Great, and we'll talk a little bit about that too, about what that experience looks like. I'm going to dive into some of these questions from the audience members. Will students and parents be able to sleep on campus the night of orientation is a question that has come up.
Sure. We are not offering any overnight accommodations for students, families, or guests as part of orientation. In previous years, we have required students to stay on campus as part of their first year program. That's not the case this year. And family and guest accommodation, overnight accommodations have not been provided in the last 15 years that I've been here. So we are making recommendations that if our family members are traveling with students or students need those overnight accommodations, that they seek those off campus at one of our area hotels. And we have some listings of those within the USF website that they could visit.
And if a parent couldn't get the visa to join their son during the orientation period, is there anything that the Office of Orientation can do to support, or any resources that they can provide?
Sure. Our families and guests are more than welcome to reserve a place in orientation or register for orientation as well. It's a $35 charge. And even if a family member isn't able to physically be present, they would still have access to our online course for families that they could get the information that they may need to help support their student. We are not offering virtual programming this year for our families due to staffing and budget constraints. And so all of our facilitation will be in person. But we understand, especially for our international students, that they may have family members who need that support. And we can certainly provide that more in a kind of asynchronous format via that course that I just mentioned.
And for someone who signed up for orientation for the mid-month of June, they already have a dorm ready for fall. Should they switch orientation closer to the start date for fall? And if so, what is the cost to move in early? Not sure if we have the details about early arrival yet, but wanted to bring that question up.
So obviously, Housing and Residential Education can answer the specific cost details, but in terms of orientation date, I would say that's the preference of the student and the family member who may be joining them to select those dates as they are available on first come, first serve. So if they already have a date and that date works for them and they've made travel arrangements to be here, they may choose to keep that. However, if that's going to create a financial hardship, then they may decide to change that date. They would just log back into their orientation reservation and select from one of the other available dates that may be closer to that early arrival or early move-in period. If they were to choose a date that is closer to the start of the fall semester, they would need to contact Housing and Residential Education about the early arrival process because it is an additional cost and it's based on wherever they are assigned or have selected a room.
And we are getting some questions here about the early arrival process. That form, I'm not sure to answer right now when that is going to be available, but we always communicate that over email. So something that we always recommend is to check your USF email regularly, because that is where information about these types of things will be going. So keep an eye on our website and your email, and that information will continue to be released throughout the summer. And then another question about orientation before we get into my pre-planned questions. Keri is asking about more virtual options being offered or potentially more openings for orientation to be around move-in. Is that something that is being considered?
The dates that we have out on our website, with the exception of one, and I'm looking at our website right now, are set and ready to go. And so we don't intend to add any more dates to the calendar. We did add another date, which is not currently posted on our website, but it is in our reservation system for our summer admitted students because we did not have enough capacity in our June sessions. to support the students who had been admitted for the summer term. So we did add that. However, later on in the summer, we are not intending to add any additional virtual or in-person options. The dates that are out there have been set. The only reason we would do that is if we reached maximum capacity for the sessions that we have currently available, and we needed to do that to accommodate anyone who had not yet made a reservation.
Perfect. And now, one more. I know I said that we'd get into my questions, but one more I want to just clarify before we jump into the details.
Sure.
A audience member is clarifying that day 2 can be completed from the student's home virtually on their computer, except for if they are part of a College of Engineering or another special population. Is that accurate?
Sure. Just to clarify, the College of Engineering has virtual and in-person offerings. And so that would be working with the College of Engineering specifically on the dates that they have designated and the modality on those dates. So just to be clear on that, because I know we've gotten some questions about that too. However, all of the other colleges and academic programs outside of the College of Engineering are offering day 2 in a virtual capacity. So yes, they could travel home after the first day is over, sleep in the comforts of their own home, and then day 2 log on for their academic program content. The academic programs on day 2 will start at 10 a.m. and they should wrap up around 12:30, as we've been told by the colleges. So if that's a question that you may get at some point, just know that that is a thing. And yes, they can do that from the comfort and confines of their own home. What we tell students and families, though, if they are going to be traveling on the second day, that they need to make sure that they are in a location that has a really good Wi-Fi connection. So if they're going to be in a car and driving home, maybe up to the Panhandle or something like that, the car's probably not the best place to participate in the second day of orientation, just because our connections can be kind of tricky on that second day, right? So we want to make sure that they're in a space that they can fully engage.
Thank you, Marnie. And a comment from one of our viewers, Tanya, says, just wanted to say thank you to Marnie for all her help. She is the best.
Thanks, Tanya.
So let's talk about what orientation sessions entail. What does an orientation session look like?
So the day that I've mentioned, the first day of orientation, we'll check students and family members that may join them in. We'll have a welcome from our orientation leaders. We'll have a session facilitated by our undergraduate studies partners about navigating academics. We'll do some financial aid and fee payment information, talk about wellness and our student health services areas. There'll be a quick presentation from our counseling services areas. And then we'll talk about just being an active and engaged member of our community, what it means to engage in student organizations or being involved in those spaces, what it means to meet conduct and expectations and have a safe community that's full of respect and those sorts of things, and being a safe and productive member of the USF family. The students will meet with our orientation team, orientation leaders a few times throughout the day and have some small group discussions. And then we'll wrap up the day with what I call resource fair. It's some departments from across campus that fully support our new students in their experience and in the department's operations. Anybody who joins us will have opportunity to complete campus business at the end of the day. And then we are trying to schedule some campus tours for anybody who may need them. And so that'll be sort of a day of show kind of thing that we'll announce. The other thing is, and we get lots of questions about this, will my student or will I be able to get my ID card during orientation? And so the biggest takeaway from that is students can pre-order and preset their USF ID card by logging into My Bowls Path and completing that task. And if they complete it ahead of their orientation, and we're saying about 2 weeks out. So tomorrow is 2 weeks out from our first in-person session. If they do that, we'll have their ID card printed and ready for them to pick up during orientation. And we have an allocated time for that. So just make sure that that happens ahead of time and you'll be all set and ready to go. So those are kind of the high points for families and guests who may be joining. And that they'll spend the first part of the day with their students in some of those presentations that I just mentioned. And then we'll split students and families in the afternoon. Families will hear from our Dean of Students area. We have a really great presentation called Crucial Conversations that talks about safety and wellness and responsibilities and what to do if there's an emergency on campus, those sorts of things, and how to prepare their students in those spaces. We also have a presentation by your department, Julia, and so that's something that our families really take advantage of. We'll hear from our dining services folks and what that looks like for residential students. And then a few other key presentations I'm actually presenting to the families, which I'm really excited about. And we'll talk a little bit about onboarding needs and what still needs to be completed in terms of tasks. So that's kind of the first day. The second day, as I mentioned already, it's academic requirements and overviews. And just to reiterate, all of our first year students are being pre-registered for their courses. So if there are concerns that are coming in from anybody who may be watching us or come forward after that, we don't want you to be concerned about, I didn't get an orientation date until later in the summer. What does that mean for my students in terms of their course registration? Our academic advisors are working on creating those schedules for our students. So they will be in those courses and based on test scores and transcripts. So it's a very fluid process in terms of when that happens. So we just ask for some patience in those spaces. But our advisors will work through that for the students, and so they're ready to go.
Thank you, Marnie. That's all really valuable information. And just another clarifying question. We talked about the first versus the second day. Is the second day available in person, or is it strictly virtual?
It's virtual for everyone. However, the College of Engineering has a small number of dates that are being offered in person. So assume you are attending virtually.
And is that listed anywhere for those personal offerings for engineering majors, the in-person ones?
It would be better to contact the College of Engineering and connect with them about what those options are in case they change.
Great. And Henriette is asking, will there be a separate orientation for the Honors College, or is that part of the orientation process?
So Honors College students, it's a great question. Honors College students and many of what we call special populations. So our student athletes, anyone who is participating in the ACE program, our SSS program, our Bulls business program, they do attend the university orientation. So what I've just described here, the first day and the second day. And then those programs, and especially the Judy Genshaft Honors College, does host a separate program for those honors students. And so it's separate because we want to make sure they're hearing both from the Honors College as well as their other academic college and academic program about what all of the requirements are and what the support is that they'll receive.
Perfect.
So the Honors College will reach out. They'll reach out to those students about that.
Okay. And we're also getting a question from an ACE student. An ACE student move-in is day 1 and have orientation day 2 and 3. When will ACE students' ID cards be given to them to access their rooms?
That's a great question, and I'm going to refer back to the ACE program for that because they may have made separate arrangements that I'm not aware of for that. They'll need their ID cards to access their rooms and their meal plans, so I would recommend touching base with the ACE program representatives about that.
And you did mention this earlier about class registration, but another question on that is the students' college class registration classes made during orientation for the fall semester. So can you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. If they're a summer student, they will be pre-registered for both summer and fall. If they are a fall student, obviously they'd be pre-registered for fall. The caveat to that, and I should have mentioned this earlier, is we need to make sure those student health holds are cleared. So student health holds would be immunization, medical history requirements, or student insurance requirements for our international students. If those are cleared, the advisors can go in then and pre-register the students for whatever semesters they're going to be starting. So if they're starting in summer, again, that would be summer and fall. If they're starting in fall, it would just be fall. But they'll create those schedules. Once the students have attended orientation and are cleared in our space, have met all of the requirements, they will then be given access to adjust those schedules, but we always recommend they don't do that without connecting with an academic advisor first, because we want to make sure they're hitting all the marks and all the requirements that are being asked of them for graduation.
Got it. And Andreas is asking, I'm currently in the process of reserving my orientation for the fall-spring term, but I have a question. When is the pre-orientation course going to appear on Canvas?
So if they are reserved for orientation, we go in once or twice a week and we upload students to the Canvas course. And so they would get an email from my office and a prompt from Canvas that they have been added to the course. So what I would say is make sure you're checking your USF email and give it a few days after you make your reservation and see if that course is there. If it isn't, and it's been several days, please contact our office by emailing us at myorientation@usf.edu, and we'll go ahead and make sure you get added. Our spring admitted students, if there's a question from anybody about spring, we will not start hosting anything for spring until we wrap up summer and fall onboarding. And those courses and reservations typically open in mid-October.
Thank you. And do parents need to register for orientation separately, or are they included when a student registers?
They are not included. So once a student makes a reservation, as they're going through that process, they can add a guest or a family member to join them. It asks them right during that process, would you like to add an additional attendee? And they do need to confirm payment as part of that process. Now, if somebody decides after the student has completed the reservation that they all of a sudden want to join, that's fine. They can go, the student can go back into their reservation and add that family member. No one is confirmed for orientation until they've paid that $35 per person charge. So just be aware of that there is a cost to attend.
And we talked about what orientation will look like a little bit, but since we're on the topic of family members attending, can you talk about the value a USF family member receives by attending as a guest during student orientation?
Sure. I think the best way to explain it is, so much has changed in the last 2 years in the landscape of our university and what we're offering, right? So we're coming out of being remote and fully virtual into an in-person setting. And with that goes a lot of support that's needed to really understand what is required of students, what the rigors of attending a university may be. Some of our family members may not be familiar with that, and also just to feel good about their choice. And so thinking about how we're supporting our students, how we are supporting our family members in those spaces, because they are also going through a transition during this time, but really just understanding firsthand what's being asked. So what's being asked in an academic space, what's being asked from a community standards space, and really just what's available. And I mean, we tend to have fun during orientation, so I mean that's part of it too. And so come join us, and you'll see for yourself. But really, just again, feeling like you've made the right choice for your student, and the next 4 years are going to be really great for them and for you in terms of making the right decision to be a USF Bull.
Great. And another orientation question from the audience: can I connect with my honors advisor regarding pre-registration?
I would say, you can certainly reach out to the Junie Genshaft Honors College and ask them about their process. I am not 100% familiar with how they are managing things in that space. I do know that they are doing outreach to the students, much like all of the other academic communities or colleges, about pre-registration and course availability and those sorts of things. So if the student has not received an email to their USF email address from the Honors College, then they can certainly reach out and ask for more information or to make an appointment with an academic advisor in that space.
And a question on the similar vein: will my advisor confirm what courses on Canvas I need to take? For example, the classes I've taken in high school should cover certain math placements and civics, but I would like to confirm what I must complete on Canvas.
So all of our courses, once a student is registered, will appear in OASIS. And so that's our student kind of record keeping system or gateway for a lot of our business transaction and especially course registration. So they would see those courses there. DegreeWorks is kind of the audit or gatekeeper system for what is required in terms of degree progression for our students. And so once an academic advisor makes the course schedule, and certainly I'm not an academic advisor, so I'm just going based off of what I know, they would those courses would appear in degree works as in progress, or once they complete the courses as completed. If there are things that are accepted, for example, AP, IB, Cambridge test scores, credits, and all of that, those would appear as items that are potentially completed. But again, the academic advisors will go over all of that with the students, so they have a better understanding of what's being asked of them and what's being accepted. Certainly better than I can without, being in that space.
That was helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And how can our viewers get in touch with the Office of Orientation if they have additional questions or would like to speak to somebody?
Sure. There's a couple of different ways. The best ways are by emailing us at myorientation@usf.edu or calling us at 813-974-3060. Our office hours are 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Please know that we are slightly understaffed in our office, and we'll certainly get back to you as soon as we can if we don't get back immediately. And so we're asking for about a 2 business day turnaround with our emails, but I'll be honest with you, we've been able to connect with people much, much quicker than that. So just be patient. The other way is through social media. That's not necessarily the best way or the way that I recommend, because sometimes those messages just kind of, they sit there and we don't necessarily see them if we're very busy in the office. So if it's something that's an immediate need, you're receiving an error message and can't make a reservation, please call or email us and we'll be able to assist you in those spaces.
Thank you, Marnie. And thank you for taking the time to do this with us tonight. I have a couple more clarifying questions from the audience, and then we'll wrap. Nicholas is asking about classes registration. So we wouldn't have our classes until orientation. Is that correct?
That's not necessarily correct. So students are being pre-registered, and they're being pre-registered sort of in the queue based on when they have made an orientation reservation and their orientation session date. So students have schedules now, and those schedules are being created, almost daily by our academic community. So more than likely, our students will see their schedules before they attend orientation if they have met those student health requirements, and we have their transcripts and that information to go off of to make those schedules. So don't panic if you haven't seen a schedule yet and it's not in there, because it's coming, but you don't necessarily have to wait for orientation to see it.
And another clarifying question, will everyone meet with an advisor during their orientation experience?
So you may not meet individually. So let's just get that out in the open. So it may not be one-on-one advising. You will meet with your academic program, and you will also meet with the advisors in that program. They are there to help answer questions and to triage any concerns, those sorts of things, provide a really, a wealth of knowledge in what's required, and all of that. In terms of the schedules and reviewing, one by one what those courses are, some colleges are doing that. Some are doing it more in a group setting. And anything that the colleges and academic programs are facilitating, they will be reaching out to the students if they haven't yet about how those sessions are being conducted. So again, check your email. I can't say it enough. Check your USF email, because that's how we're communicating. So one college may be hosting things a little bit differently than another college based on sheer volume, size, and student need.
Great. And Marnie, thank you again so much for all this valuable information. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Julia. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a great night. So thank you again to Marnie for answering all of our questions and the questions from the audience. And as a reminder, the USF Tampa campus is experiencing very high demand for on-campus housing and is nearing capacity for the fall 2022 term. In response to this situation, the fall spring housing application has closed, and we have initiated a standby list process. You can learn more about the requirements for enrolling in the standby list on our website at usf.edu/housing. And if you have additional questions about living on campus at USF, you can reach our office by email at housing@usf.edu or by phone at 813-974-0001. And be sure to join us for our next episode of Housing Live on Wednesday, June 1st at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking about student leadership opportunities at USF. You can watch on our Facebook or YouTube page, the USF Class of 2026 Facebook group, or the USF Parent and Family Engagement Facebook page. USF Housing Live is produced by Housing and Residential Education at the University of South Florida in Tampa. Our motto is best place to live, best place to work, and best place to learn. Thank you to tonight's guests, Keri Riegler and Marnie Hauser, for joining me this evening. Thank you to our production crew, to you, our viewers, and of course, there's always just one last thing. Go Bulls. Good night, everyone.